Hey there, everybody. Pete here from Comic Book Geezers. Welcome to another edition of the show. We are frantically trying to get you guys some content during this whole coronavirus issue that we've got going on. So thankfully, we've got plenty of guys to do it. So we've got Wild Bill, my partner in crime, is going to be recording stuff at his place. Thankfully, I've got our third amigo, our third geezer, Kirk, is joining us via Skype, along with his daughter, Quinn, our #1 fan, to bring you guys some content. So we're going to be doing as much as we can during the course of the next few weeks or however long this takes to bring you some cool stuff. So Kirk and Quinn, welcome once again to Comic Book Geezers. Thanks for joining us, guys. Today, we're going to talk all about the Phantom Stranger. And Kirk has got a whole bunch of really cool stuff that he wants to show. So I'm going to leave it to him and Quinn to kind of run this whole thing. I will provide some color commentary where it's needed, but otherwise, Kirk, take it from there, my friend.
All right. Well, I got to tell you, thanks for having us again.
Always welcome here. Like I said, you are an honorary member, so you are the third geezer in this team. So you know what? Always happy to have you. And quite frankly, I got to say this. Kirk not only has some great expertise and knowledge on the whole comic book genre, all the different publishers, but you know, Bill and I have a lot of comics. Kirk's collection like completely dwarfs ours put together. So he's been, Kirk was actually collecting comics while Bill and I stopped for many years. So even though maybe Bill and I started earlier because we're maybe a little bit older, Kirk has been doing it longer. And he's got a lot more stuff, a lot of different publishers, a lot more different eras. So it's always great to have you on the show because I think you add a really great element to what we do here. So again, I'll leave it to you to take it off with Phantom Stranger.
Okay. One of my favorite characters, Phantom Stranger, just to give you a little background, started out as a Golden Age character. A lot of people don't remember that. There were actually 5 issues released by DC Comics in the late 40s, early 50s, somewhere in there. Very hard to get. I've actually looked at them. I've only seen them 2 issues in my whole career as running around, looking at different shops and stuff, and they were going for several $100s. So at that point, and they were poor copies. It didn't do well. Wow. 5 issues, boom, dead. If you check like Brave and the Bold and stuff, occasionally a couple of back issues there were a couple of reprints and stuff. I don't know if they even have a reprint book that has any of those stories. They're not that great. The couple that I read, they're not, Golden Age stories. I love some of the art. The covers are fantastic, and there's a lot of great history there. Content, not always.
Well, yeah, I mean, the stories and the dialogue on most of that really, really old stuff is very hokey.
Yeah.
But but look at the time though. It's not surprising. You look at movies and literature from that time period. It's all the same, right?
Yeah,
it's very naive. It's very naive. That's the way I usually put it.
And you got to remember too, though adults were reading comics at that time, they were still really looking at a market for kids. So you really weren't going to get into the darker stuff until Marvel started pushing that with the whole death of Gwen Stacy and all that. But that's why I kind of love my favorite era for books really is late 60s. 70s books. I mean, I think that Bronze area of books, so fantastic. The end of the Silver Age into the Bronze.
Yeah, no argument for me on that. Absolutely.
The Phantom Stranger, one of those characters that, I'll be honest, when I was a kid, there was a comic shop in White Plains called Heroes World. You used to be able to pick up back issues of Phantom Stranger for like 50 cents. Now you're not going to find them for that price anymore.
No, yeah.
So I picked up a bunch back then, and then as time went on, I filled in all the holes in my collection. So I have actually a complete run of the Bronze, Silver Age, Bronze basically, Bronze Phantom Stranger series. So we're going to look at those today. And the first one we're going to show you, of course, is #1. And it's great because, again, this is more, like it looks more like a guy in just a trench coat, almost like a detective character, but you're not too sure about this character because they never really... There's no origin story written about him at this point. There's been a couple of tries at it, but at this point, he was just literally this guy who show up, something was bad happening into town, and he figured it out.
All right, so I have to bring it up now because we're at the beginning of the episode. So, is there any correlation between the Phantom Stranger and the Shadow?
I'm going to say
because
my.
I'm reading the old Shadow Pulp books right now. The old
No,
in
yeah, yeah.
and they're great. But I always thought that the two, and I know that DC also did a Shadow series later on, like in the mid late 70s or whenever that was,
That's some
early
stuff too.
70s. Right. So I'm just wondering, was the Phantom Stranger at the time their answer to the Shadow before they brought him into the DC universe? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, I gotta say, I think as the character moves on, it takes on certain elements from that character. You're right, but I think initially what the character was more of is like this mysterious detective character from the '50s, is where it gets its roots. And as I said, you see that like in these early issues, but as it moves on, you see that shadow kind of character coming out. Because during this period too, you're looking at there was a renaissance for those types of stories. You
Sure.
started seeing like the Green Hornet books, The Shadow, and Doc Savage, who we all love. They were all being reprinted into novel. The novels were being re-released, which was fantastic for us as kids growing up. We could finally read these stories. But as I said, I think later on they started adding that kind of a nuance to it. Um, so again, great stuff. And there was always kind of like a supernatural twist to it. I haven't read the Shadow stuff. Is there a lot of supernatural stuff in the Shadow stuff?
Well, I only just started reading them, so they allude to a lot of it, but it never. It's kind of like the Doc Savage stuff. They allude to a lot of these like mythology things and horror elements, but in the end, it always turns out to be something that's very well explained by natural, modern day science. And so far, in what I'm reading with the shadow stuff, it's the same thing. They allude to a lot of things that could be supernatural or otherworldly, and it's always explained by, natural occurrences. So, again, we're talking the 30s, right? 30s
Yeah.
and the 40s, and back then, not as all the fantasy and sci-fi elements were not so prevalent as they are today. So we wouldn't, even though they would bring up a lot of those things, like, oh, is this really what's happening? In the end, it turns out that it was always very well explained by natural things happening and natural facts. So
Hmm. Yeah, as I said,
good
this is
stories, though. Good stories, fun stories. I mean, I'm really enjoying them so far. But this is someone I've been reading Doc Savage stories since I was a little kid, and I only just decided like in the last month to go and get some Shadow books, the Bantam books, and I got a stack of them, so I've been reading those. And it's very cool stuff, but again, very detective-y, like you said.
yeah.
It's very detective-y, which I like. They're very like complex, but very alluring, interesting stories. And I love the way in 120 pages you can make a very interesting story happen and tie it up very well. And that's something to be said for the writing back in that time
Yeah.
period.
Yeah. I got to say, these stories are similar in the aspect that it's kind of a reversal because it's almost later on in this series, you're going to see Doc 13 shows up, who's another character who actually dates back to the Golden Age that they brought into this series. Kind of like he's the guy looking for the scientific edge for what's going on. So, and the Phantom Stranger kind of comes in and then he disappears before, kind of like that lone gunslinger who comes into town and then disappears at the end of the story. So it was kind of
Gotcha.
like the crust of all that, but definitely some cool stuff. Here's issue 2. Again, he was a lot of like fighting demons, gargoyles. Sometimes too, it turns out it's just some guy in a costume. Oh my God, Scooby Doo! And
That's
there's
a cool cover. Could you pull a little closer to the camera? That's pretty cool.
yeah, the covers on this are really
Yeah,
fantastic.
that's pretty nice.
Again, you get a lot of Neil Adam covers in these too. Jim Aparo,
Ah,
Jim Aparo, right?
yep.
Batman artist, fantastic. I love him. All right, let's try. We'll go through book 3, and I think this one, yeah, again, great covers. As the story starts progressing on these, you see it takes on more and more of a horror edge. And I can't remember her name tonight. But she becomes like this character on the cover here ends up becoming like a main nemesis for him. She's kind of like this reoccurring like sorceress that causes grief for him. But the interesting part is there's no like connecting characters. There's no like you don't have a supporting cast like you do in like Spider-Man or anything.
Okay.
He shows up from town to town wherever he's needed. He shows up, he deals with the issue, and he moves on. She ended up appearing for a couple of issues. Next issue, of course, she comes back again, bother him some more. And again, great covers. Now you're seeing too the costume is getting more updated. He's got a cape on instead of a trench coat. He's got like looking a bit like Doctor Strange, if you will. I like this cover because I am a sucker for the Headless Horseman story. So again, you're getting these great horror things going on. We're up to that's issue 6. These another one. Killer tree attacking this poor guy, ripping him apart. Nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with trees pulling people apart, right?
Yeah. Then we move on to something that Thor might battle. If you look at it, awesome. And again, did that? I think
it was like a frost giant or something, right?
Yeah, doesn't it look like a frost giant? It's like a woman. Yeah, it's like and I think that's a Jim Aparo cover. Or maybe a Neil Adams. I'm not too sure. Problem is the guy can sign their stuff,
Yeah, these are great, man. I would love to check these out.
And again, here's a voodoo cover. How do you beat that? Because again, it's the 70s. This cover I love because this one doesn't this looks like something right off of like a Harlequin romance novel, but but just great stuff. And I mean, it's kind of hard. I know with this stuff, trying to get close. I mean, look at the detail that goes into the hand and everything. I mean, just really great stuff.
That also reminds me like those Vault of Evil covers or Beware, or those great like 70s Marvel or DC horror titles.
Yeah, it's all like really it's similar to that stuff because I mean, and this is why it's really it gives you that really close to like it's a mix basically between a little bit of a superhero thrown in there, but a lot of horror. Again, some girl with a peace symbol got pulled into a dark closet by something with, I don't know, green hands. So, and then, so we see that.
I like that. That's good too. Yeah, I like that.
As I said,
that's got a nice atmospheric, creepy quality to it, right? I love the use of the green. That's very cool.
That's what I was saying. Isn't that the best part? It's like the coloring is amazing.
Yeah.
So,
and this character has remained throughout the DC canon for all these years. I mean, I've seen him pop up in a lot of like kind of Justice League stuff and things, all like in more recent times. I mean,
yeah, he's still kicking around. He's very relevant. I think that and we'll show you is he's had a couple of miniseries, but it's never been enough to really kind of put him on to that. And here you got some again, bang, and he shoots the guy. It's like But this one's interesting because actually I just recently found out. Now look at that. We all love our swamp monsters, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, what I didn't realize until recently was this is actually the prototype for the Swamp Thing.
So what year did that come out in?
This came out like a year before.
So about 1970 then, right?
Yeah. So
cool.
I was checking because I realized there was a lot of money for this issue, and I was like, why are people paying top bill for this book? Not that it's a bad book, but I was like, and then people were like, it's a prototype for the Swamp Thing. I was like,
So basically, Len was probably reading that on a train one night because he lived in New York City, go back and forth to the office and thinking, ooh, I like that. I need to create like that kind of character in the swamps down south, and before you know it, we have the Swamp Thing, right?
Yeah, I had Bernie Wrightson on call and was like, next thing to do and pushing it out. Again, and I love only 25 cents, bigger and better. But again, and they mixed in some science stuff too, because you look, it's a voodoo and android. I mean, where else do you do this stuff? It's really solid. But they didn't hold with that too long because then they went back to the creepy. Definitely some cult activity. And what I love too is if you always check in the background, there he is sitting there, just kind of like waiting, you know. So, and then, is that a great cover?
Yeah, hold that a little closer. That's pretty cool. Yeah, look at that. That's very cool. It's almost like 3D.
Yeah, and it's got the little like rail there for the subway train that used to fold in like that, but it looks almost like teeth the way they do it. It's kind of like
Yeah.
awesome. And there's the other one with the Spectre, and I mean again, look at all of the women are very well developed and everything. The characters. So it's some solid stuff. I'm going to tell you. Can't beat that. So and then we back to crazy icicle thing. And again, this stuff too reminds me a bit of the '70s Spectre stuff that was done by Jim Aparo as well. Where he got a little rough in some of those books. I've seen you guys done some stuff with that too, and that's some really solid books too. And this is similar. Guy's frozen to death out there, and the guy's like, oh no. Again, some guy chasing some woman with a child, and again, great just stuff. That I believe was Jim Aparo as well. Which one you got there? And again,
Hold that up. That's a great cover. Hold that up a little bit closer. Yeah, there we go.
I'm trying to get the glare out of that. Yeah.
I love the look on everybody's faces down the bottom. That's great.
Oh yeah, look at
that look of like dread. That's great.
And let's see, we got 22. That's good. So yeah, and this one at least Jim Aparo signed because he did a lot of these. And as I said, I always feel like he did great horror stuff too, and he just doesn't always get recognized for that. And you're like me, you like the old horror stuff. So again, kind of a Phantom of the Opera twist to it. Guy's cutting the old chandelier off. And then 24, we got, and again, sometimes it looks like, these guys are dressed up, but these are more like hoodlums, and so you got that. And then what happened was for some reason, they decided that they were going to do a Spawn of Frankenstein backstory. I thought the Phantom Stranger stuff stood alone, but
you got that like serpent snake thing on the front too.
It's yeah.
All about.
Look at some of the covers here. The art inside. You can see like, I love this guy here. Looking at he's like, wow. I'm like, what the hey is that? But but I'll be honest. The Spawn of who did the Spawn? The Spawn was done by. Okay, here it is. Because. Okay, God, right away. Oh, there you go. Based on, this was Mike Kaluta. That's why. Yeah, you check. This was the Spawn, and Mike Kaluta, who went on to do the Shadow series. Who, I'll be honest, great guy too. I mean, solid stuff from him. And they were selling this series. They're trying to get people to buy into it, because then the next issue, they give old Spawn of Frankenstein the cover.
Bill's got that one. Yep, I've seen that.
Yeah, one. The front story is still a Phantom Stranger story, but they put that in.
Bill has stated that is the worst depiction of Frankenstein monster ever.
You know what? I'm not going to argue too hard with him because I can't.
Green with the long hair. It's like,
hey, it was the 70s. Anything went. And there's another one, again, getting more into like back to the supernatural stuff.
Yeah, that's a cool cover though.
Yeah. Oh, I said the covers for the series were fantastic. I love this one. This one is like right off of like an old horror book.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, look at that, right? That should be in Bill's collection. I really think so.
It's like, oh my God, I am Man Bat.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh my God. This always reminded me of Karen Black's, Terror of the little tiki doll, I love that thing, Scared the bejesus out of me as a kid.
Oh yeah, I think that scared all of us when we were growing up.
Oh my God. This was actually the last Phantom Stranger I needed, and I actually only got this about 6 months ago. And it was just one that I kept everywhere I went. You couldn't get it. I mean, nowadays you can order anything, but back in the day, I had to go to comic shops and try to find this stuff, and it was not always easy. And then after a while, I guess people heard Bill, and they decided that Spawn of Spawn of Frankenstein needed to go. So then they put the Black Orchid in as a backup story.
Uh-huh.
You remember the Black Orchid?
No.
She had a very small career. Picture of her, just so people could see what we're talking about. And again, I don't know. Oh, Sheldon. Art by Tony DeZing. Oh, that's pretty good. See, there is the Black Orchid. Nobody, again, no origin story. It was a weird character because they didn't tell you who she was, what she came. Later on, they filled in that information like in the 90s, but they never really got around to telling you what was going on. Oh, you know what I love in these old books too? Besides, where is that? I just saw it. Not that. There. You used to be able to, I don't know if you remember that as a kid. DC Comics would do this. They'd give you the cover with all the different issues that were coming out. You ever see that?
Oh wow, I haven't seen that in ages. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, remember that? You used to go
Well,
there.
that's kind of their version because Marvel used to do that too back in the day. They would do like you would have, especially I think from like 1966 through like maybe 69, right? They'd always have one page that would show you some stuff that was coming like in the weeks ahead. And they would usually be two, right? But sometimes they did more than that. And let me tell you something, that was always cool. And especially here's what's even cooler about it is like for all of us guys now who are still collecting that stuff from back in the day. So you're reading, you're buying and reading these old issues, and then you're looking through the books, and then you see that page, and you're like, oh shit, I don't have that issue.
Yeah.
Right?
I know it's bad because you're like, oh, I mean, you quickly go, no, I just ordered it, thank God. But all right, and then all right, so we'll go on in 32 and back to Satan because Satan was selling big back then. It was interesting because there was a hard sell back then because with the comic codes you really weren't supposed to use Satan. You know that? That's why Mephisto is called Mephisto instead of Satan in the Silver Surfer. Look at that's him.
The other weird is they flip flop back and forth though, because then all of a sudden, like Satan was the guy who was like basically, running the Ghost Rider thing, right? But later on they said, but that was Mephisto. So it's like, who is he? It's like it's the same guy, right? Because then much later issues, every time they brought that relationship up, it was Mephisto and Johnny Blaze and Ghost Rider. But back in the day, even though Mephisto as a character came before the Ghost Rider, when Ghost Rider was first started, it was Satan and not Mephisto. So it's like, but then if you look back now, if you look at all the data on that now, they basically say that Satan and Mephisto in Marvel Comics was the same character.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know that at one point they were trying to say there was different versions. I was like, got too confused, even for me, who didn't follow a lot of this stuff. I was like, all right, that lost me. Then what's cool is getting near the end, 33, they brought in another character I like. Again, I have a fondness for real obscure characters.
Oh, Deadman. Yeah.
So that was sweet.
This one reminds me of Two-Face.
Yeah, my daughter's thinking, what do you say? Get in here. You got to get this.
The guy in this one reminds me of Two-Face.
He certainly does. So who is that there?
It's some guy who's just an android, and he's going to rip the Phantom Stranger's head right off. And it's another Jim Aparo cover. We'll take a peek. Look at that. Let's look inside, see if there's something good. Oh, I love this too. Do you ever remember these?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Those were quality. Also, did you ever get these when I was a kid? I never got these. I'm still a little angry about this. I got some issues about this. The stickers. Did you ever get those stickers?
No.
All right. See, we had deprived childhood, right? Where are my stickers? I'm going to call my mother now. But get your grandmother on the phone. Tell her I'm angry. All right. See? But yeah, I mean, as I said, like definitely, it's kind of and there's Doctor 13, as I said. Remember him? He's the guy who's always so angry because every time he's trying to catch the Phantom Stranger, he just doesn't catch him. So he's a little peeved at the world.
He can't catch him, right? Can't let that happen.
Because he keeps saying, you're a fraud, you're this, you're that. And he's like, well, I didn't take any money or anything. And then he disappears again. Like, after a while, you take a hint and be like, I don't think the guy's actually, he saves your life a bunch of times and moves on. I'd be happy about it. But anyways, here is issue 35, which let me make sure that doesn't glare too much. It's kind of hard to get the glare out of it there. See, you got the Spectre on there. And as I said, they got rid of the backup stories because I think they started realizing nobody was buying the backup stories.
Yeah.
But then they went back, and again, just a lot of strange, like, again, something happens, and the Phantom Stranger shows up, and you see this woman finds all this gold and everything, and then all of a sudden the lizard comes back to kill her, some curse. And I got to say, I always have a soft spot for mummies. And again, that's very hammerish, kind of like
that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Like, oh. And I got to admit, I've got something, and I don't know what it is. It's probably an issue, but I always kind of like the things where they're hunting the nuns, even though I'm not Catholic. I mean, I gotta say, I don't know. My grandmother was, and she'd probably have a heart attack that I'm having this conversation. But and then again, they brought back the backup stories again with Black Orchid, and for one shot, and there's a nun being choked, getting ready to be hung. Very strange stuff.
I will tell our viewers. So Kirk and I have known each other for a long time, and he has tried to get me into like weird nun-related horror movies for as long as I can remember. So that's not surprising.
You watch the Fulci stuff, so
I do, yeah.
No, it's all quality stuff there, my friend. He's done it to me too. He is not an innocent lamb being led to slaughter. I don't. So, all right. Oh, yeah, somehow double that one. All right, well, and we've got, here's the other one, Dead Man Returns again.
There you go.
I got to say, I'm a big sucker for Dead Man. He did there
he is again. Look at that. That's a great cover.
Yeah.
Look at that beastie on there. Cool.
And I don't know, I didn't even realize this until now, but just because we couldn't have one, we have two in the collection for some reason. So, this was the final issue of the series. At this point, they at issue 41, they ended up closing it down. It's a shame, but that's actually not a bad run for this type of book in that period.
No. Hey, if you're looking for a new home for that double there, I think I know someone who might be interested.
I'll set that sucker aside for you. In 2010, they did a Blackest Night run where they resurrected and did a additional issue on a bunch of books that had been closed out, and they included the Phantom Stranger in there. So this was the 42 that got put in as part of that. And then just to finish everything off, in 1987, they tried bringing the book back for a miniseries. So we have all those here too. So we'll look at those quick. Again, I think, the miniseries is okay. I'm not going to, if you're a guy who wants everything like I was, you want to have them, but I'll be honest, I think the original series is fantastic. I strongly recommend it. Just a great character, but you never get like any origin or anything. You don't get a story like, my mother got beat by and killed by a villain, and I'm now hunting down crooks. No, nothing like that. It's just like this guy shows up.
Well, maybe that was the intent all along, right? It's like let's keep this character as shrouded in mystery as possible, and who knows? So, like, for those folks who maybe don't have any of those and want to get into the Phantom Stranger, would you say that a good chunk of that is fairly easy to get nowadays, or yeah?
It is. The number one is the highest one, and the one that I showed you with the Swamp Thing prototype. But you're still not talking big dollars. You can get a mid-range one for like $40. It's not gonna break
Not
the bank.
too bad. Yeah.
The rest of them you can get $5-6 a pop. They're reasonable. And as I said, yeah, they're not lengthy reads, but they're not bad. They're a lot better than anything you're going to buy now on the stands, in my opinion. As you know, we've discussed before, you can read one of those in 5-10 minutes, where this one will take you 10-15. You know, I
Yeah.
think it's a good. They're good stories, and the art is fantastic. The stories are well scripted. I just think that, and I'll be honest with you, I find too, you buy books nowadays, and like 6 months later, you can find them in the dollar bin at shows or whatever, and it's like,
True.
that's like, what were you spending your money on? So
Yeah. True. Well, it looks like a something I want to investigate. Like I said, I don't have any Phantom Strangers, and I dig the kind of like mystery horror type of books. So I think it's definitely something that I would want to check out. So thanks for sharing them.
you know, the only thing I tell you though, the good part about them, they're like one-off reads. You don't have to buy them in an order usually.
Which is key. That's a good point. That's a good point. So you can get them anywhere in the 40 some odd issues and read them out of order. It doesn't matter. There's no continuation. And that's tough with a lot of other series nowadays because like,
Yeah.
you could read something, go and buy an issue 53 of something, but yet that storyline has been continuing from 48. So like, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't know what the hell's going on. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, good point. Good point.
Yeah, except
So
for the last 3 issues with Dead Man. Those are interconnected, but everything else is pretty much one-offs. So as I said, great stuff, reasonably priced. And I got to say, you never know. By next week, they'll probably make a movie and they'll all jump. But
so in other words, get them all now, right?
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Very cool. Well, guys, thanks a lot for showing us your Phantom Stranger collection there. So I want a big thanks to Kirk, our honorary third comic book geezer, and his daughter Quinn, our #1 fan. Thanks for joining us once again. I am Pete, and I just want to mention to everybody, please make sure you're all taking care of yourselves. You're all well. Let's do what we need to do in this time of crisis, and we'll get past all this. But in the meantime, between Bill, myself, and Kirk, we're going to try and bring you as much comic book content in the days and weeks ahead because we know a lot of people are home. They got time on their hands, and they want to kind of escape from reality a little bit. And I think comic books are a great way to do it. So again, guys, thanks again. Say goodnight. I am Pete for Kirk and Quinn. We'll see you guys hopefully real soon here on Comic Book Geezers. See you real soon.
Peace out.
Bye.